Here with Todd Waters, Geoff Ballard. Probably both of them need no introduction, but today we're standing on the motocross track. We got to ride the motocross bikes a little bit, but the 250, 350 and 450 Enduro bikes. Todd tore the bag out around the motocross track, and then you guys went for a really cool ride. So look, I'm going to start with the sort of what we normally summarise. Let me start with you, Todd. But your favourite model out of 250, 350, 450 and why?
Well, first of all, what a ripper day. Like we've got heaven behind us right here. Going out with Geoff. I haven't been riding with Geoff. Obviously know him really well. Moved to Burleigh Heads where I live on the Gold Coast, but to go out riding with a good crew of people is really good. And on the new Husqvarna range, it's we've been waiting for it, and we've got some really good range changes to the bike. So we'll run through that a little bit later. But yeah, we got to ride 250, 350 and 450. I personally race 450, so I enjoy having the power there.
Even in the tight bush?
I do, yeah. Like I like to ride upper gear, so I like to be third and just use the torque. I don't rev it too much. So hopping on the 250 was a massive change for me. Like it was so light and nimble. It felt completely different. The power, I was really lazy on the thing. I had to change down a lot of gears. And then I found that for me personally, then I'd sort of have to rev it a lot, and I'd lose that drive on the slippery uphills and over the tree roots, because I tend to like to tractor it, hop things, and I like to use the clutch and pop over a lot of like difficult objects and wheelie.
You don't have to, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Well, motocrossers all do that in the bush.
Yeah, so just completely different for me. Riding a 250, obviously the good points of it, super light. It felt like I had factory tyres on. Like, you don't get that engine inertia and the pushing of the heavy, like the feeling of the bike. Coming into turns opposed to 250, it just, when you back off, it just sort of coasts into the turns. It's a really easy little bike to ride. And then you go to the step to the 350, which is basically just feels like a worked up 250. Feels really light and nimble, a little bit different with the power, but it still has that same feeling where you kind of want to rev it more. It doesn't want to torque as much as a 450. But hopping on the 450, I just felt like I was at home. Yeah. I really enjoy riding the 450 the way that I can just torque it around.
Okay. Well, Geoff, I know that you're a 350 fan, mate. You've had one, I think, for the last 3 or 4 years. You've always had a 350 in the shed that you bought yourself. Still your favourite bike, when you rode these Huskies today?
Today, no. 450, really? I preferred the 450. The main thing was because it felt more planted, and the suspension to me felt better. And I know they're all the same, so it's weird. So yeah, I just, and it depends on the bush that you ride and all those sort of things, because it's pretty dry at the moment. It's a bit skatier and everything. It just feels planted, and you don't have to get on the gas too hard on it. You can try and be smoother and all that sort of thing. And we did use the, traction control, and I tried it in the more mumbo mode, and it was good. It's exciting. It goes really well, and it's still good enduro power, but I preferred it in the tighter stuff where we did some loops out there on the one setting, which is the more mellow setting. Still got plenty of power, of course, and torque, but to me, it just felt planted and easy to ride in those conditions, let's say. We didn't do millions of types of conditions out here today. It's, as I said, it's pretty dry, but it is pretty awesome too. It's a good area to ride. I've been here before. But yeah, I'm normally a bigger fan of the 350, and of course, they're all bloody good, like seriously. Hard to fault them. It doesn't matter what flavour, colour or anything they are, they're all pretty good. And, there's a bit of a basic setup. It was great to ride with Todd, and some of the stuff that these top guys do, they're all running their brakes higher. And so for me, I just went, I'm just going to go along with this. And, it was good. It's good it's when I had the race team as well, it was great. You just sort of learn off, the good guys. And, it takes a bit of adapting though. So I was struggling a little bit, jumping on a bike with a brake that's maybe 15 mil higher than me. I run mine pretty stock, but these guys, Milner's the same, they all run them really high, and I understand the principle, and it's pretty cool. But it takes, let's not just throw ourselves in the bush and start trying to go flat out somewhere.
You can test it where there's not trees next to the track, huh?
Yeah, but, that was probably the biggest thing, for me. It was just different conditions. You're just trying to get used to a bike a bit. Really steep hills here, slippery. The 450 just stood out today for me. I liked it. It was great. It obviously feels a bit heavier than the 350, but I just enjoyed it. It was good.
Well, let's put these 2022 model FEs in context a little bit. We're talking before, you know, I think Finland, they did a launch late 19 for the 20 models. That was the last big upgrade. They did stiffen the chassis up a little bit, completely new bodywork. Went quite soft on the spring rates, actually went down about 2 spring rates back then. So these things are an evolution of those things from 2020. They haven't done a lot for 21. For 22, new looks, trim, grey frame from blue. I think we've gone from Metzler to Michelin tyres standard, but probably I'd have to say the two biggest standouts. Suspension, the change in the suspension, and the fact that they've gone now, they've dropped Magura, you know, brake and clutch, and gone to a Braktec system for both sides of the handlebars and rear brake as well. So,
yeah.
What's your take? Let's take the, you know, let's go to the levers for starters, mate. What do you think of brakes and clutch? I know you're pretty finicky with both.
Yeah, massive change for me. First of all, the clutch. There was an issue with Magura. You know,
Seals.
yeah, there was problems with seals, the reliability. Like I had some go on me, and I changed to Brembo personally, and that's what the motocross bike has now. So we know that works. It has a good feel, but I was actually really impressed with the race tech stuff. Like it,
Braktec.
Braktec.
What did you say? Race tech.
Race tech. That's a spring
Suspension mod, mate.
Yeah. So the brake
and
tech.
plastics.
Braktec, I was really surprised with the brakes as well. Like they're super strong brakes, but they have I'm not someone who likes a light switch brake. So when I went and raced for the factory team in Europe, I really struggled with the factory Brembos. Like they were just so on off for me.
Yeah.
I don't need that. I like to feel, I ride my front brake through turns, so I trail my front brake a lot. You can pretty much take my back brake off, but I cannot ride without front. That's, for me, I'll trail it through a rut, I trail it through corners. Like I'm quite finicky with my front brake. And this has a good feeling for me. Like I don't like a super out of control touchy front brake, but it brakes really good. Whereas the Magura, I could have it into me knuckles and I'd sort of felt like a drum brake a little bit. Yeah. So I don't want to bag it out, but like that's just the reality of it. Yeah, that's the reality of it. They've fixed the problem for 2022. I'm a massive fan of it. Like it's the feeling, front, rear brakes, clutch. I can't fault it. It's good.
And Geoff, I know when we last jumped on some bikes with some Braktec brakes, the first time we'd put some on, I tried them on Enduro bikes anyway. I had the gas model, you know, 6 months ago or whatever. You loved them. I think you said it's the first time ever where, I know you always go to a solid rear disc to get a bit more feel in the brake, because most people don't want more a touchier rear brake. What do you think of the setup on the Husky?
I don't know if they've changed at all. The back brake, probably because it's higher. I felt it was more powerful, but you know, I like the stuff, and I love the lever shape. I think I mentioned it before. It's a finer lever, so I love that lever shape. The front brake, I want it to come in further than the adjustment.
Yeah, that's one thing. The adjuster all the way in, only let it halfway back to the bar. I know you guys both run it back a fair way, but even for me, who runs it in a pretty standard position, I felt like I needed more adjustment. So it's a little thing. You could probably grind something off.
You could probably modify it easy enough.
I had the same problem as well. We were actually talking about it before, so I didn't touch on that. But yeah, it's definitely, I like it in closer. So
yeah.
Cool.
I mean, these things come with a map switch and all that, and it was interesting playing. For me on the 450, I played around. I tried it on the others, but to me the 250 and the 350, I just run it on the Mumbo mode. You know, it's obviously when you get to a more powerful engine, you can play more, and then traction control works well, and especially on the big one. So today the 450 worked great. Yeah. So. And these guys, you know, they preloaded. Did we talk about the preloading of the...
Well, I wanted to, let's get on to the suspension, because I think probably the biggest change for these bikes, as I said, from 19 to 20, they went down 2 spring rates, and these things are running 4.2 Newton-millimeter springs, which is kind of soft. I think they got the thinking was that, you know, you could preload it for popping logs and shit like that for extreme, right? And they work better like that. But I think for the Americans and Australians that, you know, probably bigger guys going faster, more open terrain, it's like it's the things... So they've gone back up 2 spring rates, I think 3 on the 250 this year, so up to 4.6s. Weird thing is, we were talking about it before, across the board, according to a spec sheet, identical fork, identical shocks, right? But they feel like they've got a really different character, right? You felt that too?
Yeah, massive.
It's almost like you can't believe the spec sheet. Right?
Well, it was backwards for my feeling, and everyone today sort of had the same feedback that the 250 felt softer, and the 450 felt firmer. Like the 450, I was really comfortable on the thing. Like Geoff said, like super planted. I didn't feel too much diving or like squatting in the rear end. I felt like it was soft. It was soft for me, but it worked really well. Whereas when I hopped on the 250, I went down the hill and I was like, oh man, this thing's diving, it's in the hard part of the stroke. So I literally pulled up halfway around the track and went in on the preload. And I was like, oh, that's a bit better. And now the shock feels like the ride height's not set, like it's sagging in a bit.
Yeah.
It shouldn't make sense, because if you put the same suspension in all the models, when you start going up the engine capacity, like it just adds more engine brake, more acceleration,
more
the bike should
yeah.
be moving more.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense to me.
Maybe
But
it's just, I mean, you know, power is the enemy of suspension working how you want it to, right? Maybe a big more power is just like, just creating more work for the suspension.
Yeah. But you got to remember, he's like the fastest in the country type of guy. So, you know, I mean, the preload's there. Maybe in the rocks, the preload is a little bit of a disadvantage. I just went with the flow because these guys were cool to ride with. And, you know, he talks about how he just gets in off-road from motocross and he launches himself into creeks and just works it out when he gets there. And it's a different approach when you're this level. So, you know, he likes, and most of the fast guys, they always talk about it, they want it higher in the stroke. But a lot of average guys, more like me, you know, they feel comfortable, you know, and they would probably notice more of the harsher routes and everything. He just goes faster until it's in a better part, you know.
Well, we talked. I remember I grabbed you before you went. And, hey, you said these dials, bro. You probably don't have them on your factory forks, but seriously though, so they've been on. I'm pretty sure since the 2017s on the Huskies. You've got 6 mil, right? So you just literally so easy. Take the little bit of front weight off the wheel, tick like that, so you can do it out in the trail.
Well, you actually showed me, and I literally did what you said. I put it on the side stand, I lifted the weight off, and as you can see, they just turn like that. And
good adjustability. We were talking with the air fork before. It's great adjustability, but is that? Oh, I didn't feel much difference, or was it significant?
No, massive.
No, he was talking about it.
Yeah. For me, it was like I said, I felt the fork on 250 diving, and I did that, and I was like, oh, it's.
And even on the trail, those big jumps and everything, you notice the difference. Yeah.
And where else would it come into play? If you're on a sand track, I remember in that Finland sand track, you dial it up a bit. It's
but then opposite, like today, if you go on the motocross track or like it's like dead flat, hard pack like we're standing on right now, you actually go the other way because you might want the fork to get in and turn. Like in some tight little ruts, you might be going in like single track with trees. So yeah, it's really cool because you can literally just pull up. Well, you might open a gate on a trail ride, you know, there's always gates around. You might open a gate up and click it up because there's a sand section coming.
And look, that's, you know, let's talk a little bit about componentry because, you know, these things on average, I think about $600 or $700 more than the sort of counterparts from KTM and a little bit more above gas. But, you know, you've got some pretty cool componentry. For some people, the linkage versus the PDS is enough to go, that's mine. You know, but things like, you know, the billet clamps, you know, the fact that you get the, you know, traction control, you get both handguards and bash plate. I think KTM has had the bash plate for a while. What else from a component point of view?
Well, biggest thing for me is the way that the plastics, like I spoke about on the motocross bike, the whole Husqvarna range from 125, so the big bikes, all the way is interchangeable. So plastics you can just put on. But the biggest thing for me is this side part. You know, everyone's putting steg pegs on their bikes now.
Just because you can lock your calves in.
And the big thing for me that I find with steg pegs is they are quite a long way forward, which put you in a bad riding position a lot of the time. When you see the desert guys, they move their steg pegs right back. As you see, they stand on their toes, their legs are back, and they're a long way back. And that's pretty much where these are. Like straight away, I use them for my technique that I push my legs back like steg pegs, and I know that I'm on my toes, and it makes me feel like I'm gripping in. When I ride the cousin's bike, the orange ones, I feel like it doesn't have that, and I feel like I almost need to have steg pegs on. So for me, it's massive. That's my favourite part of the bike, is just feeling the back end, how comfortable I feel when I can lock my legs in.
And also nice that it shares the same seat line. I think slightly different seat foam, same plastics. Tank's obviously a bit different. You've got an extra couple of litres, I think, on this compared to the motocross bike.
But the plastics still fit on, like interchangeable, so it's cool.
If I'm picky, like that switch block looks like about 10 years out of date for me, for, you know, like a premium product on a Husky. Not a big thing, I'm just, you know, just being picky here. Never been a fan of the, I think I've heard a couple of people call it a dolphin torch headlight. I call it a bit of a TTR tank kind of look. But that aside, you really have to quibble because, you know, now the component spec on these things is, you know, pretty slick. And look, back to sort of power delivery, guys, you know, anything on the sort of gearing when you're comparing the different capacities?
For me, I didn't notice too much difference of any of that, you unfamiliar terrain. The gearing was fine. You know, I couldn't pick on anything in the gearing. It was good for me.
Okay.
And that sort of exactly his comments is when you know that the gearing's right.
Yeah.
Like for me, I feel like I come through single track and I'm always in the right gear. And then I get onto open fire trails, we're sort of cruising along and the power delivery versus where the gear is it's always right for me. I was ripping around the motocross track for probably 30 minutes on 2 different motocross tracks up in the bush. I never find I'm in between gears, which is, it's a pretty rare thing. And I think that they've nailed that side of things, Husqvarna, with the way that the engine works. Like I said, like the 450, I really enjoy riding it,
Okay.
whether it's on motocross, in the bush, open fire trails, it just works well for me.
And we've got to talk about the looks, you know, like quite often, you know, with the Swedish heritage of these bikes, obviously owned by KTM now, but, you know, there was reference like the old Husqvarna back in the day, the late Husqvarna's called the IKEA bike, you know, because they got that modular kind of cool, edgy look. Interestingly, this year, you know, because as your blue and yellow gear pays tribute to the Swedish, nice work, mate.
There's a bit of grey on the back.
There you go. But hey, man, you rock up and the thing's like, it's got no blue on it. You know, like it's a blue Husky logo at either end, but the rest of it's sort of grey. And I kind of like it because it's subtle. I know it's not the most important thing in the world, but it affects sales, you know, like people like their bike to look good when they wheel it out of a showroom. So what's your guys' take on the new look? Is it quite different from last year?
Yeah.
Not bad. I don't think I like the grey seat, but sometimes it's a thing that you just have to live with for another week or two and then you like it. So right now I'm not like grey.
Matches the grey handguards though, mate.
It does, yeah. But yeah, you know, I'm personally a guy who doesn't care that much about it. You probably know that. To me, it's they all look the same when they're covered in mud and you're stuck in a rut, you know.
Yeah, that's right.
So yeah, it's not a big deal for me. Yeah, they look fine. They're pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know, you want a white one or what colour you want, you know.
Well, there's a couple of grand difference on a dealer floor, you know, is you know, typically in Australia, the 350 and the 500, the bigger one, we didn't get 501, didn't get the opportunity to test today. You know, they're the bigger sellers, and then the 450 and then the 250. So
where does the 350 come in there?
I think that and the 501 are both sort of toward the top, along with say a 300 two-stroke in terms of relative sales. You know, like I guess you got to always talk about a bike in, you know, there's 2 kilos difference in weight, but there's a couple of grand. You know, obviously there's a lot more power that comes with the bigger capacities, but you know, is that a big consideration for somebody? Do you think, or it's like, hey, man, I want the 350. I'm just gonna, you know.
Yeah, I think it's more personally. I think it's more to do with the engine, and you know, there's some componentry for sure. But some guys like linkage, some guys like PDS. You know, so you get, you know, in the Austrian group or whatever, you get a couple of choices of linkage. You know, with gas or this thing. I'm more used to the PDS, and I like, from a lazy point of view, I like the fact that there's nothing much to maintain in there.
And not big performance. I know we're jumping back a little bit. I should have asked before about the performance difference between linkage and a PDF. You can't answer that because you're not riding anything.
Yeah, well, it's very hard too, you know. We had them here, same day and all that, so it's hard to really compare. Obviously, it's great, you know. There's nothing, I can't say there's a reason except that PDS can do it without a link, you know. I mean, they can go fast, and you know, there's plenty of guys can go super fast with PDS, and I go, well, they're much faster than me in PDS, and I like the laziness of this, you know. And if you're playing with a shock, take it out. But you know, linkage obviously has its merit. You know, theoretically, it's going to work well in small bumps, and then the linkage starts coming into effect, helping stopping the thing bottoming, and you know, there's plenty of good things. Obviously, they've designed around that initially, and still there with most bikes, but. Good bikes, you know. I loved it. It was great fun.
I guess the last thing I've got to ask you, mate, you're with the past master in the bush today. So, you know, you've come out in the Australian Off-Road Championship last year, and it's great to see, you know, like an Aussie champion taking on off-roads, like putting you know, building your calendar and offering really good value for your sponsors. You've been at the pointy end. You've been in the top 3. I think you've got a couple of second outrights. But did you learn anything from the old old master out there in the bush today, mate?
There's always something to learn. There's always something to learn. And the good thing with Geoff's generation is exactly like he said. It doesn't matter about the looks. Like, you know, that's how it is. And
functionality.
Yeah, and when Geoff rides, he carries momentum, and he moves, you know. Like I say, like the biggest thing that I found going to off-road was guys, they don't worry about standing on their toes. They don't worry about elbows up or elbows in or anything. Like, they're just like, oh man, I got to get there as fast as I can. And everyone does it so differently, you know, and that's what's really cool, that I really like. And that's what, I guess making the change has really helped me try and be like, okay, at the end, I just got to go fast, man. I just got to go fast. Whether it's motocross, off-road, I got to jump on this bike, that bike. They're completely different. I just got to ride the things. And that's probably more attitude-wise is what I learned from Geoff, is just being in the car driving here. I just like hearing his point of view, and, you know, it's always like, oh, we just go riding, you know, like, you know, feels good, they'll do, let's hit it. Like,
the best is yet to come.
You know, and that's what I want to be like. You know, I've seen the other direction, like a lot of the American riders, you know, they're milling down throttle tubes and this and that, and like they get so damn fussy that today they probably couldn't ride one of these because they're just like, oh man, this just can't ride it. So that's the biggest thing that I try and learn from the generations above me, is they didn't have, you know, the resources that we got now.
Home change, yeah.
Well, the big thing was like, tell us how you hold the front brake. Like, that's
I'm definitely strange there.
Ricky Carmichael style.
Yeah, I hang on here and I brake with the outside fingers, and he goes, why? I go, well, in drum brake times, it's not a one finger thing. You know, you use your whole hand.
Really cool.
So it's hard to change, but you can.
Did he have a sprocket zip tied to his? Oh no, that was a 6-day back in Czechoslovakia. Anyway, guys, hey, it's it's a real privilege actually. It's super good to be able to get you guys to, you know, hook up and go riding together. Great, you know, both icons of the sport, and really cool for you to come out here for Transmoto today. And yeah, you're right, it was a ripper day. We're so blessed to you know, be part of this. So we better find a bit of a reason to go do it again pretty soon, eh?
Sure. The oath. And like a little bit of history, I remember when I turned 16, we did some award nights, and to be here, you know, you inviting us to come out here, it's I'm 30 years old now, and I remember the first time I met you, we did the awards night down in Sydney, and I think Geoff might have even been there. And that's, you know, that's what's really cool and special about today for me, is being a part of a brand, coming out riding with you guys, and yeah, it just brings back good times. Hey?
It was a good day.
Not a lot to argue about, eh?
Yeah, so I appreciate it.